And we are live. Hello. Hi, I'm happy to be with you here today for our next live demo. Good to see you. I'm just going to give you a few minutes to join, get some people on. Great to be here. I really enjoyed last session. I hope you were able to join me, but never mind if not, you can always watch the replay on the page from last week, and we're going to continue along where we left off. So we're looking at the basic strokes of copper plate calligraphy and to give you an introduction to iPad calligraphy using Procreate. So if you don't already have it, there is a free starter kit that includes all the basic stroke drills and a pressure sensitive brush for Procreate, so a calligraphy brush for Procreate, and that's free. You can download that. There's a link in the description of this video. So that's where you will find that, and feel free to get that and get it up and running for our next session next week. And you can even go back and watch the replays if you want some more guidance. There's also video description instructions included as well to help you get set up and running in Procreate. So we are going to be picking up from where we left off and last week. So I'm going to move to the overhead camera here so that you can see my iPad, and that should be fine, and then I'll just be down the bottom here. Cool. So last week, you might remember, we checked out the first basic stroke, which was this full pressure stroke. So this was our first stroke, and that showed us as well how to use the guides. So we looked at the fact that there's this key here that shows the downstroke and where to apply pressure. And you've got this first row that you trace of the first stroke here. And then we've got another 2 rows that you can practice on your own. So another thing that the guide shows you as well is the eraser. So you'll see this little blue icon, and that's referring to your eraser tool. So I'll bring my iPad down so you can see that. That's your eraser tool there. So that just refers to cleaning that stem ending. So that was in lesson 1 last week. You can always go back and watch that, but just a reminder. And then we looked at the basic stroke number 2. So this is the pressure and release stroke, and we saw that there's 2 different versions of that are very similar. So it's just counted as one stroke really, the long and the shorter version. And you can see as well in this one that we've got the upstroke hints coming in to the guide. So this is telling us that we start here, the arrow, we start here, we move into that curve at the baseline, and then move up into that upstroke. And this upstroke, this blue dotted line, is telling us that that's an upstroke and it's in a light pressure. So that's where we got to last week. So we're going to continue on with this guide, looking at our third basic stroke, which is the pressure and release variation 1. And I'm going to make sure I've got my copper plate brush selected, so that's included in your starter kit as well. I see someone on. Hello, welcome. People are joining. Nice to see you. So next step is to just make sure that your practice here layer is selected, and this is provided in the guide, different practice layers, just so you're not writing on the guide itself. And that means you can use it again and again without, drawing straight on the guide. So looking at this third stroke here, we've got this you can see we start here and we move into a light upstroke, and then we start to curve as we hit the X height line and move into that downstroke. And this should be on the same 55-degree angle here. And then I'm just going to move to my eraser tool here. So I'll move to my eraser tool, and just because this has this little icon, I know that I need to just tidy that stem so I get that nice straight edge. So it just means like maybe just coming a little bit over the baseline when you have a stroke like that, so that you can just remove away, you have that buffer and you can remove away that excess area to clean that stroke. So this stroke is fairly straightforward, but it's good practice as well to just get your angle right, so you're getting that 55-degree angle. And then, of course, you've got the rows to practice on your own. So once you've finished tracing that top line, then you just move down to the second row here and then take it on your own. And you'll see if you compare to that top row, you can start to see, oh, I went a bit thin there. So, you know, you can compare this and reference it and make sure that you're getting the same sort of width. So it's a good idea it's a good way to get comfortable by comparing that before you move on. So that'll give you some good practice to kind of get comfortable with using your Apple Pencil as well, and just get familiar, because it is sometimes tricky when you're first starting out writing on an iPad. You want to grip your pencil really tight, and you'll find you probably want to really grab onto the screen and push really hard, but you don't need to apply a lot of pressure to get that downstroke quite heavy. You know, you get this thicker pressure without, you know, really applying a massive amount of pressure. So that is stroke number 3. So you'll have access to that in your starter kit, and you can practice stroke number 3. And another one we're looking at today is stroke number 4. So this is pressure and release variation 2. So again, we've got the hints here. So these little key is up the top. You can see the blue means light pressure and the orange means a heavy pressure. And a light pressure is upstrokes. They are made with light pressure. And then your downstrokes, you start to apply pressure. And again, we've got another upstroke. So that then means that the pressure tapers off and we get this like light pressure upstroke. And something to keep in mind with this particular stroke, when there's upstrokes, is you also sort of need to keep that thickness consistent as well, even in thin strokes. So in week 1, we did look at keeping the consistency in the width for a downstroke. You don't want it to sort of, you know, start to taper in like this. You want that straight sort of width throughout the whole stroke. And the same is with your upstrokes, because the brush can be a little sensitive. So it does take some getting used to just make sure that you can control that thickness and you're not kind of beveling in and out of thickness. So again, we'll look at that one again. You start from the baseline, move up to the X height, and then move into this downstroke. It's on that 55-degree angle, and then you start to taper off around here. You start to ease up the pressure so that you get this nice taper, so it's not sort of thick and then all of a sudden thin. You've got this nice smooth transition into the curve. So I'll do that one again. I actually really like this stroke. I think it's a great one when you're starting out, because you get that pressure change a few times. So the strokes we've looked at so far have been just made in 1 or 2 turns, and this is our most complicated so far. And this just means that, you know, we're just kind of advancing along and kind of getting a bit more comfortable with using the Apple Pencil. Because I remember starting out, I remember how awkward it is when you're first starting, and to get control of the Apple Pencil, and it can feel quite frustrating at first. So a stroke like this is a really good one to practice with, so that you're just taking that extra curve, you're sticking with it a little bit longer, and you can prove to yourself that yeah, you can sort of make that curve easily. And then, of course, when you'll finish that tracing row there, then we move on to practicing on your own. And again, you're looking at the guidelines, the reference lines above, to check that you're getting the right angle. So we were talking about last week how copper plate's written on a 55-degree angle. So that's these lines here, they're 55 degrees. And that is great for the angle, but it also does come in handy when you're training and practicing on your own to check the width of the stroke is the same. So you can sort of use these guidelines to just estimate that you're making your own, when you get to writing on your own, that you're making it the accurate width, that you're not kind of coming in and making that a really small and thin stroke. It's got to be that kind of, marking from that point to about that point, and you'll get more comfortable with the width of the stroke as well. And that's important. That will come in later when you start writing letters and words. It will make it obvious, that a letter is too thin and you need to just add a bit of white space into the curve and the letter form. Excellent. So pressure and release variation 2, and now we'll move on to our 5th stroke. So this is basic stroke number 5, and it's called the O shape. And of course you'll recognize it as the lowercase o, but of course it's also used in a number of other letters. So the letter A and the letter D. And so this is the beauty of the basic strokes, is that you put them together and they form letters. So this one is a great one to practice and will come in handy for many letters. And so you can see on the guide itself that our start point is about here. So you see that's indicating this, the little arrows indicating the start point. And we know that there's instructions as well for up the top for any of these strokes. So it's worth giving those a read just to check that you're going in the right direction. But we also know that an upstroke is going to be thin. So we know that this is an anti-clockwise stroke, and that it starts there with an upstroke and then moves into that downstroke curve. And it's a good idea just checking your taper starts as you cross that curve. So as you hit the X height, you start to bring in the pressure, and then you reach full pressure around the mid of the stroke and then start lightening up again so it has a smooth transition. This one as well is worth looking at, that you're keeping it on that 55-degree angle again. So like keeping an eye on your guideline angle, because it's easy to sort of get it a little bit upright, this one. But you do want to make sure that you're getting that 55-degree angle. Okay, so we are up to the next session. So we'll leave the rest for the next session. If you want to look into and read a bit more about how the basic strokes add up and combine to make the lowercase letters, you can find a link to the latest blog post on the Facebook page just under this video. There's a link to a post called It All Starts with the Basic Strokes, and that's definitely worth checking out because it shows you the basic strokes for the lowercase and uppercase letters, and then examples of how they combine to make the letter forms, and just reiterates why it's important to get these basic strokes nailed before you move on to the letters. That way it becomes part of your muscle memory and you don't even need to think about it. You start to get that real smooth automated control, and it becomes very natural. So people often think of calligraphy as like a running writing style, but it's not. It's several strokes that are made in different movements and actions, and if you can get that muscle memory in your arm right by these training drills, then you can just write very smoothly, and it looks consistent. It should always sort of look consistent and smooth. Okay, so that's everything for this lesson. I hope you enjoyed our second session, and I look forward to seeing you next week where we'll look at the rest of the basic strokes. Don't forget to pick up your starter kit. The link is in the description to this video, and I shall see you next time. Okay, bye for now.